There we go. And let me get, oh, well, that'll work. Okay, so in this session, I want to focus on just some simple hints and tips and some easy ways of creating videos that will be reusable for the future. We actually touched on this a little bit in the last session, so Mary has seen some of this from before, but we'll focus on it a little bit more. And my remote is not working. Okay, and apparently neither is this. There we go. So the first question is, why might you want to create videos? And one of the most important reasons for creating videos is that if you're teaching remotely or if you're teaching asynchronously in particular, it creates much more of a sense of instructor presence and immediacy. That when students see your face on the screen, when they hear your voice, it creates more of a sense of connection to you. They feel like they know you more. And it just provides much more presence than just simply text. So even if you're using it, for example, to flip the classroom and you're still meeting in person, having some videos out there that students can listen to, they tend to appreciate it because they like having you explain things to them. We talked in the last session about creating a flipped classroom environment where you're spending the class time in active learning activities, but you're creating the equivalent of lectures for outside of class use. When they hear your voice explaining it, students tend to value that more and feel closer to you and feel more connected than if they're listening to videos that other people have created. So there's some really good reasons for creating at least some videos in a class. And again, even if you're doing a fully face-to-face class, videos can be useful for review purposes and to support flipped learning. It humanizes the instructor is a phrase I think we've all heard a lot in the past year, because there's a lot of research suggesting that when students feel more, when they feel that their instructor is a human being, they're more likely to approach him and ask for help and assistance and so forth. And they tend to put more intrinsic value on being successful in the class if they feel more of a connection to the instructor. It also provides multimodal instruction so that they're not just reading, they're having another way in which they can process the material. It's just giving students another way of learning in addition to a textbook or online readings that you might give them. And multimodal instruction has been found in very many studies to be effective in enhancing learning, to increase the amount that students recall, and making it easier for students to make connections. When they see the same concepts in different ways, it makes it easier for them to make connections among the concepts. And a really useful way of creating videos, if you're not going to create many videos, one really useful thing to do is if students are submitting work and they're making mistakes, create a short video just to explain those concepts so that you can do some just-in-time videos to help students with the things that are the bottlenecks, the things that they have trouble understanding. And if your class is meeting in person or is meeting synchronously, whether in person or not, and you're getting some work and you get some work in where you see some misunderstandings occurring, you can create a video and send it out to students in a course announcement, so you don't have to wait to make corrections until the next class meeting if you're meeting. And that can be useful. And if students are having problems with a concept now, it's likely that students will have trouble with that concept in the future. Once you create a video explaining that video can be reused in future courses, which makes it even more valuable. So there's some fixed costs of creating videos, but the cost each additional semester that they're reused can be quite a bit lower. Now, there's a lot of research that shows that students are much more likely to misperceive the tone of email communications or discussion board communications. And in particular, there tends to be a negative bias that when students read something that could be interpreted in multiple ways, when they read it in text, they're more likely to misinterpret something or to interpret it as being somewhat more negative than the intended tone. When they hear your voice, or if they see your face on the screen, they're getting more clues about the tone of your voice and your facial expressions and so forth. And they'll see that perhaps it may sound very different when they hear you saying something than if they're reading it on a screen. The basic equipment you need, we all have. At a minimum, you need a laptop with a web camera or a mobile phone or tablet. And in fact, you don't even need a web camera. Technically, you really only need a microphone. Although if you want to have your face on the screen at times or your face visible to students, you do need a web camera. But pretty much every laptop now comes with a web camera. You know, the only faculty I know who didn't have web cameras were people who had relatively older laptops, relatively older desktop computers. And we did have quite a few people with that on campus. Now, you can also use a mobile phone or a tablet computer because they also come with phones, with microphones and cameras built in. If you're going to record that a lot, you know, you might want to pick up a cheap tripod. And I usually have some around here. Well, I've got some bigger ones here. Oh, you know, you can get tripods that look something like this for like $10 or so, where it just expands and you can slide your mobile phone in to do recordings on your desktop if you'd rather work with something like that. Now, if you really want to, if you're going to be doing a lot of recordings, you might think about getting a better quality microphone, and you can get some really good USB microphones for $50 or less, or some, well, roughly $50 or so is the price of most of the better ones, but you can get some for $20 or $30 that work much better than the microphones built into smartphones or into desktop laptops. You could also get a better web camera. If you have an older laptop, you could also, if you really want to get sophisticated, use a video camera or a DSLR camera, but you don't really need those things. If you're going to make any additional investment besides besides using your phone or your laptop, probably the most useful thing would be to get a better microphone, because students are very forgiving about the quality of the video, but if they have trouble hearing your voice, that tends to result in a much lower perception of the quality of the recordings. Because if they can hear you clearly, it doesn't really matter quite as much as what they see on the screen, because quite often students will be watching the videos on smartphones anyway, where the resolution is going to be quite a bit less than it would be on the devices that you created it on. So, you know, if you're going to do an upgrade, think about getting a microphone that you could plug in. A USB one is the simplest. Now, if you really want to keep your videos simple, you can just record using Panopto or some other tool, and I've become blurry. See, apparently my camera is acting up. Okay. That's a problem with the focus on this camera sometimes when it's been on for a long time, and it's been on for several hours now. Well, I'll fix that later. I can load the Logitech camera. I'm not sure why it does that. It looks like
a good illustration of your point, though. All that matters is that we can hear you.
Well, and the screen, you can see the screen. So
right.
Yeah, sometimes.
Don't worry about it. I'm sorry. I distracted you. I shouldn't have done that.
Well, but that is important. And I actually have a really nice web camera. It's a 4K one here, but sometimes the autofocus breaks down on this device. It doesn't on my other laptop, but oh well. If you do want to have the ability to edit some software, iMovie, if you have an Apple device, is free. If you're using an iPhone or an iPad or a Mac, then you can just simply download and use the free iMovie program. It's a very powerful editing tool that'll let you do cut and splice and merge and do some editing of the audio. You can do overlays, you can add slides, you can do some nice transitions, and it's a remarkably powerful editing program at no cost. Adobe Premiere Clip on Android does a similar function on Android phones, or the equivalent app on iOS devices is Adobe Premiere Rush. Panopto is a really useful tool for recording. Its editing capabilities are really limited. You can, in principle, cut videos and chop and delete portions of it and move things around a little bit, and you can trim the beginning and the end, but it's a really slow and clunky interface, and you can't, well, so Panopto is great for recording, but it probably isn't as useful for editing. A really nice package is Screencast-O-Matic. The free version no longer gives much in the way of editing, but I think it's about $1.50 a month if you want to get some fairly powerful editing capabilities, including green screen capabilities. So you can use a green screen and put up, put yourself in any location. So you can do some location shots where you have a video in the background or something, or you can have images that you're appearing in front of, or you could put yourself in front of the slides. It's a really nice package, which even the free version is fairly decent. Adobe Premiere we can get for free at the college because it's part of the Adobe Creative Cloud Suite. You do need to request a copy of that, though, to be an account to be set up for you on that, and so that you can install it on your own computer. But it's really powerful, but it's not one I'd recommend quite as easily, quite as often, unless you're really comfortable with a more complex interface. It's because it's so powerful, it has a lot of tools built into it. Camtasia is the one that I generally use most often. I've been using it for about 12 years now, I think, pretty much from when it first came out. And it's really powerful and it's really easy to use. You can have multiple videos. You can have videos in videos. You can do some really nice transitions. You can edit the audio. But it costs, I think, $250 with the educational discount. But you can either keep using that version indefinitely, or they offer a deal where for $50 a year, you can upgrade to the next release. And I've got a subscription to that. So now I pay $50 every year to get the newest version of it. And they let you run it on 2 different devices. So I actually have 2 subscriptions. So I have 2 on my 2 Macs and then a couple on 2 Windows machines. But now, in terms of videos that you might want to use, one thing, if you're only going to create one video, probably the most useful video to create would be a welcome video for your students. It's a nice way of inviting them into the course. It's a nice way of inviting them to the discipline, to what they'll be learning. And that could be used in any class. You can create a video, you could post it in Blackboard, or you could send it out as an announcement, embedded in an announcement that you share with your students. And you can use that video to introduce yourself, to tell your students how you got interested in this, what they're going to be learning, inviting them into the course, and just creating a welcoming environment, and setting a nice positive tone for the class. You could also use videos to record live events when they take place from socially distanced from whatever else is going on. But you could record things out in the field. If you're teaching a science course, you could do demonstration experiments. You can do experiments and record them on your smartphones. You could do demonstrations of various things. You could demonstrate how to use various software packages using a screencast. So, you can use your phone in the field to record a protest. You could use it to record a musical performance. You could use it to record, well, anything that would be relevant to your class, and then you could just share that with your students. You could also do live streaming if you're there physically at a time when they might be available. Screencast is probably the most common type of recording that faculty do, which is basically the replacement of a lecture. It often would involve things like a narrated PowerPoint slideshow or narrated Google Slides or narrated Prezis, but it might also be just a series of images that you narrate. It could be demonstrating how to use statistical software. It could be demonstrating how to use a spreadsheet. It could be used to demonstrate how to solve a particular problem that's relevant in your discipline. And one question that often comes up is, if you're going to record some type of screencast, should you have your talking head on the screen? And the evidence on this is really mixed. The evidence suggests that when there is a talking head on the screen, there have been a few studies that have used eye tracking software, and they found that students' attention is kept on the screen more when your head is there present talking to them, that students are much more likely to keep their eyes focused on the screen when you're there talking. However, and it does provide those visual cues from facial expressions and so forth that adds a little bit more to meaning than they just get from hearing the tone of your voice, perhaps. And it does create more of a sense of presence. But one of the problems is the eye tracking software suggests that the student's eyes tend to be focused on you, not on whatever else you're displaying on the screen. So one thing that many people have suggested is it's good to have your head there present, maybe at the beginning of videos or at times when you're just explaining things, but you don't want to have your face on the screen talking to students when you're illustrating a diagram or where you're illustrating, chemical formulas or other things. If you want students to be focused on some content that you're displaying on the screen, you don't want to be a distraction from that content. You want them to focus on what you want them to focus on. So, it's fine to use a talking head, and that's generally encouraged, but don't do it when there's other contrast. You can always cut out the head for those portions of the videos, or only have your face present at the very beginning, or when you're just talking directly to students without sharing other information with them. So in general, use a talking head when it doesn't distract from other things you want to display. Now, in terms of recording videos, the most important thing is to find a really good recording location. It's really helpful if it's quiet, if you're not next to an air conditioner in the summer, if you're not next to an air blower in the winter, if you're not recording right near a busy street where there's trucks going by that's going to overwhelm the sound and so forth. Or try to find the quietest place you can to record. I'm upstairs in an office in my house here that doesn't even have a hot air blower in this room, which makes it a little chilly at times, despite the backdrop I've got. But try to find a nice quiet place, and I'm as far from the street as I can be. Good lighting is important. And Jason High did a workshop on recording videos last week, and I have a link to his recorded session in these slides, and I'll share that with you a bit later. But it's really helpful to don't sit in front of a window. I have a window behind me that I had to put some a blackout curtain on, or a blackout shades on, and then a curtain on, because the light was getting through the shades. So the blackout curtain combined with that helped. And then I put a green screen up behind to even block it, because there was a little bit of light still creeping through all that. So you want the lighting from the front. If you have a desk that you could turn around so that you're facing a window, that can provide really good light if you're recording in the daylight, or you can do some lighting here. I have one of these little clamp-on lights on here that goes up to the ceiling and reflects back, so it's not blinding me. And I've got a ring light actually that faces the wall and reflects back, because this area would otherwise be fairly dark. So you want good lighting from the front, but not something that's going to blind you. I don't have the ring light facing me because it puts little white circles in my glasses, which is kind of blinding as well as perhaps being a distraction. Now, in terms of audio, one thing that helps, and it does help in this room because it became a storage room for my kids when they moved out of the house, and one of them was in Japan and just filled this room with lots of his crap. Having a cluttered room, though, improves the sound quality. If you have a big empty room, or if you're in a room, some of the offices on campus, where you have just tiles on the floor and bare walls, it'll sound like you're broadcasting out of a barrel. So being in a place where you have carpets, where you have some curtains, perhaps, even bookcases and other things, can absorb some of the sound, so you don't get that sort of echo chamber that you might otherwise get. You do want, if you have a background, to avoid one that's really distracting. You don't want to be in front of, one of my colleagues at the Fashion Institute of Technology had a whole series of pictures on his wall that were distracting people from what he was trying to talk to, because they kept wanting to ask him about those paintings and things. So, having a nice backdrop, a nice professional looking backdrop is good, but you don't want something that's going to be distracting from the presentation. Putting up political posters may not be the best approach if it's going to be offensive to students and so forth. So you want something that won't be distracting, but that will absorb some sound. Some general advice, and we talked about this a little bit in the last session, is if you're going to be recording screencasts or narrated lectures, whatever you're doing, keep it simple so that it's sustainable. I mentioned that I've overproduced my videos, and I don't follow my own advice on this, but if you can simply record your videos and release them, that makes it a whole lot easier to keep doing it. If it's going to take you 6 to 8 hours to create a 10-minute video, it's not something you're going to want to do on a regular basis. So keep your videos very simple, and also keep them short and focused. And there's a few reasons for that. One is students are likely to start, their attention is likely to start fading the longer the video goes. The evidence on that is a little bit mixed, but in general, by keeping things focused, it reduces the cognitive load of students. It makes it easier for them when they're having trouble with something to look at the videos that are on the topics that they want to focus on, and they can go back and rewatch it. It's easier for them to find the things, those areas that they might want to watch again and again if they're still confused by something. So creating short granular videos makes it easier for students to use them and to find information that's relevant in the videos. And it also makes the videos more reusable. There may be some concepts that are relevant in multiple courses. If you're teaching, you develop videos in an intro course, there might be some intermediate level courses or higher level courses that still build on those concepts that you might want to include as support materials for students if they need to go back and review any of that. And similarly, if you're going to, if you choose to restructure your syllabus and restructure your course and rearrange it, keeping videos short makes it easier to make them reusable, so you can just rearrange them. If you tie things too closely to a more elaborate structure of your presentations, they may not be as useful without editing and breaking them up in the future. Now, in terms of keeping it simple, your videos don't have to be perfect. In fact, wandering pets, coughs, sneezes, and so forth can be humanizing. And in fact, students will often comment on how they appreciated seeing that cat walk by or that dog come by or something similar, or they appreciate seeing faculty in a setting where there may be family members or maybe children wandering by at times and so forth. So, and if you make mistakes, you know, it's not a bad thing to let students know that we do make mistakes, and it's okay to make mistakes, but then correcting them. You know, don't leave content in it that's incorrect, that will confuse students. But if you make a mistake and you correct it in the video, that's fine. You don't have to make perfect videos. A really useful thing is being enthusiastic, that having positive emotions tend to be contagious. There's been a lot of research on that. Sarah Rose Kavanaugh writes on that quite a bit in her work. And we had a podcast with her a while back too. Well, actually 3 podcasts with her now. And if you can help students make connections to the content by using examples even of things that you tried learning and you had trouble with, and talk about how you struggled with learning the concepts when you were first learning it, and then talk about how you overcame that eventually, but that it was a lot of work and it was challenging, makes it easier for students to develop a growth mindset themselves, and to recognize that we all learn from making mistakes and reflecting back on them and working to get past those things. So, you know, when they can see you talking about examples of how this is relevant, or using examples from your life of things that may help them understand concept, can be useful. And when you create videos, it's really useful if you can start with an interesting question to help motivate it. Just as with anything we do in our classes, if we can activate curiosity and get students' interest drawn in early, that makes it more likely that they're going to be more focused on the video. That if you ask them a question and they're interested in finding out the answer to that, they're going to be paying more attention to what you're going to say in the rest of the video. And again, there's a lot of evidence that narrative is really important, that if we build storytelling into our presentations, if we can tell stories, and it makes it easier for students to follow. That, you know, we evolved as a storytelling species, that we had stories long before we had written books and so forth. And, you know, our brains are well attuned to learn from those stories and make connections from those stories. So build in a narrative to your presentations to the extent to which you can. Some other things, there's a lot of research showing that when you use examples that have some emotional impact, it tends to make it more likely people will remember them. In fact, there's some evidence that negative emotions make it even more likely that Students will remember the concept, but you probably don't want to overdo the negative aspects of what you're discussing in class. But if you use examples that students will connect to and they have some emotional content, it makes it helpful in terms of learning. And providing immediacy cues. Talk to the students individually in the videos to the extent to which that works. Let them know in the videos you provide that you're interested in their learning and their success. Let them know that these concepts are challenging and it may be a bit of work for them to get past it. But, give them some strategies on how to work through this successfully, and tell them if they're struggling with this, they may want to go and look at these other resources and so forth. But provide that sort of immediacy cue, just as you would if you were in the classroom helping students or working with students individually. Now, when you record, I'm going to stop talking in just a few minutes, but when you record, if you create videos, we've got a number of places you can record them. Panopto, YouTube, and Ensemble are all provided by the college. Panopto is best if you have videos of class recordings, or if you want to share your recordings only with the class, because you can upload it to Panopto. It gets shared in Blackboard only to the classes that you share those with. YouTube is probably more relevant if you want to have videos that are going to be shared more widely. If you're going to create some useful videos, that may be relevant to other people and other faculty, you can also share them publicly, and you'll be surprised at how many other students and faculty may end up adopting those over time. Ensemble is another platform that we have. Ensemble use right now is discouraged because by April or May, we filled up all our storage with Ensemble, and YouTube and Panopto has unlimited storage. So now people are encouraged primarily to use Panopto or YouTube. Ensemble has some uses, though, where it may be relevant. Particularly, you can put in an Ensemble Dropbox. I think you can do it also with Panopto, where students create videos and upload directly to the class Ensemble, or I believe Panopto as well. So you can set up your account so that students can upload videos if you have students creating them. You could also do that with a Google form. Vimeo is another platform where you have a bit more access control. I don't think too many faculty are using that, but it's another platform that's used by many professional video producers to share videos. When you create videos and share them with students, you could do that by putting a link in your course, but it tends to be more helpful and students are more likely to click on it when you do the sharing of the video, you use the embed code that's available with any of these video platforms to embed it as a little box that displays the intro of the video. So in that case, even though in both cases, if they click on it, it will open the video. If they see the video right there, students are more likely to click on it and play the video. And then they can choose to expand it. But by using the embed code, it makes it more likely that the videos will actually be used. You can do that right in a course announcement or in any Blackboard document. You could put it in a Blackboard item, a Blackboard page, or I don't know if you can do it in, and you can do it in discussion forums, for example. Or you could share the links in email if you'd rather, but the others are useful. Now, any digital content has to meet accessibility standards, and make sure your videos are captioned. Both YouTube and Panopto have very good captioning. YouTube is a little bit more accurate than Panopto, but not by much anymore. Panopto is mostly caught up. One of the advantages of Panopto, though, is that it will provide sentence structure and punctuation. YouTube just provides a string of words. So you have to edit the YouTube. You should edit the YouTube videos to the video captions to put in periods and capitalize the first letter of words and so forth. Otherwise, you just see a stream of lowercase words. It's probably meets accessibility standards without that, but it would be a little better if you did that. The Panopto captioning will automatically put that captioning in. And here are some resources on this. Many of these recommendations come from Karen Costa, who has a really wonderful book called, it was on my desk not too long ago, called Simple Sustainable Videos. We did a podcast with her. Dan Laird has instructions on getting started with Panopto and the basics of using that. And then Jason gave a workshop last week who talked about good approaches to recording videos yourself in terms of lighting, audio, the distance from the camera, and other things. And this book is really useful if you're going to do a lot of that. And now let me grab this URL. Let me share this URL. In case any of this is useful, you have the option of grabbing a copy of all of this. I'll put that in the chat. Then I'll open this for any discussion or questions. The name of the author is Karen Koster, C-O-S-T-A. It's a paperback. I think it's about $20 or so, 99 tips on creating simple, sustainable videos. But she also has a YouTube channel that works with the book, where she demonstrates many of the things. So a lot of the basic concepts there will be available just by watching her YouTube videos. And if you go to the link in the end of the slides I just shared with you, there is a sorry, I'm fixing my camera. Trying to fix the camera. There is a link to her YouTube channel, which will display a lot of demonstrations of some of her basic points. Okay, it doesn't look like my camera's going to fix. That's really odd. There we go. Okay, my camera's back. So, questions, comments, thoughts? I've been creating videos for my classes for about 25 years or so now. So I've done it quite a bit. Many of them were not very good. Some of them are fairly good, but the most important thing is that you do it in a way that keeps the workload manageable, because if you try doing too much with your videos, you're going to get overwhelmed, and it makes it much harder to continue doing that. Any questions, thoughts, reactions? I thought it was going to take longer to do that, but that's probably because I was just talking really quickly.
You certainly have a lot of experience in it, John. So there's a lot to be able to digest, but thank you.
You're welcome.
Actually, let me put on my light. There, that's better.
See, it looks, because I think we've all seen people who have that bright light from behind and you can hardly see their face, so that's probably one of the most useful things to do, I
felt weird because when I went to go buy this, it said it was for those who are doing podcasts, or especially for those using TikTok.
Well, so you can do little dances. I was kind of going,
oh my gosh, I don't need this thing. And it looks like this. So it's not, I don't know. It felt unnecessary, but it's been very helpful.
They're inexpensive, and you can adjust the intensity. You can often adjust the color. There's one too, and
yeah.
Does that have cat ears on it?
Though with the ring lights, sometimes the ring lights actually reflect in people's eyes, not just glasses.
That's probably true too. Yes. My glasses are almost always there though. So. Any questions on?
I know I've seen some people that, I'm sorry, John. They sit by the window and the sun is hitting on them, and then you smack on their face. And yeah. You just don't see, you just see like a shadow.
I have the window in front of me, but yeah, if it's sunny, I can't do that. Yeah. Thank goodness we're in central New York.
Yes. I was going to say, no worries for sun.
Yeah, it's not a problem.
You're good.
When I moved back into this office in March, it wasn't so bad, but in the summer, I was getting this bright sunlight coming in, blinding me in the mornings, that for only until like 9 or 9:30, but I had to put up some shades and a curtain. But yeah, you don't want to be blinded, but you do want some decent lighting from the front without something that's going to be too reflective or make it impossible for you to see.
Great.
Okay.
Well, thank you. Have a good weekend, everybody.
Okay, thanks. You too.
Thanks, you too.
Our last week.
Yes, stay warm and rest up.
Yeah, that's right. It's going to be a long semester.
It
Yeah,
is.
have a good one.
Thanks.